For those following along with this series, you might have seen F is for finishing, and you saw that when we told Wilden to focus in the FA Cup final in extra time, he went on to score an absolute worldie and win the FA Cup for us. Well, Wilden is back in the news, and after a period of quite poor form, I decided to have a word in his ear with the big game against Bayern Munich coming up. And this is what happened. And we beat Bayern Munich by 1-0 against all the odds. So why are we getting Wilden to do all these wonderful things? Today, in Understanding Football Manager, the A to Z, S is for shouts. Let's go and kick some balls. Hello and welcome to FM with Old Man Phil. And if you are a brand new visitor, I'm Phil and welcome to the channel. And yes, Wilden has been at it again, and he seems to be doing this more and more these days. So what am I saying to him? Why am I saying it? And how am I saying it? These are the important questions to ask. And today, in this very strange world of player communication and touchline shouts, S is for shouts. And I've been researching this for quite a while now, and I think I'm starting to understand how these shouts and other forms of player communication work. So today we're going to be taking a look at how you can get your players to emulate what Wilden is doing. But it all starts with you and me. And in order to demonstrate this, I'm going to start a brand new save. And while we're doing this, and I will pick any team, I'll go to England and the Premier League, and we'll pick Brighton. And while we're doing this, just a quick word, if you are a first-time visitor to the channel and you like FM content, why not subscribe, like, watch and comment, help the channel to grow, and help us to support the very worthwhile cause that you can see scrolling up above. This channel has been set up to support the British Heart Foundation. And once we have gone through the first setting up phase, we will eventually arrive at this screen. And this is quite an important part of the game, and it is going to affect how you communicate with your players for the rest of the season. Now, there are several ways that you can set this up. You can go in there and you can choose yourself the kind of coaching badges you have, your past playing experience. I tend to just say, okay, suggest for this based on Arsenal or whatever team it is that you are setting up for. And so basically it will then decide what your attributes are. Now, there are also management style presets, and this is really the important part of this. There's the motivator, there's the disciplinarian, there's the youth development specialist, the knowledgeable specialist, the tactician, and the taskmaster. Now, there are, for me, two of these that are really important when it comes to communication, and those are the disciplinarian and the motivator. And whichever one of these you choose will affect the touchline shouts and the way that you interact with the players for the rest of your save. You can, of course, tweak these. I can move these up and down, and I do tweak them a little bit because I like to think of myself as a motivator. When we're setting this up, though, we tend to tut loudly and do it as quickly as we possibly can before we click that confirm button. But this is very, very important. And now that I have set myself up as a motivator rather than a disciplinarian, and you can see now that I have 20 when it comes to motivation, and in terms of discipline, I only have a rating of 11, and that's not very good. So disciplining players is not a specialist area of mine. Motivating them is. And so immediately I know now there are things I cannot use when it comes to touchline shouts. They are probably going to be quite ineffective. Throwing the water bottle and berating my players is going to have now very little impact on them, and I have had players who have just looked totally uninterested when I have done this. And whilst it might make me feel better, it's not doing anything for the players. If I was a disciplinarian, then I might get more success with that kind of interaction with them. So before moving on, you always have to remember the kind of manager that you are and the style that you will use to interact with your players. And so part 1 is complete. I know what I am like as a manager. And part 2 is to know your team, and in particular there are 3 things that I want to know about the team, and I want to know a number of things about each individual player. Now I make a set of notes, and I think you can, I don't know if you can see those notes, because it is impossible to remember everything that I need to know. And so I've got these notes on 1 page or a page and a half of a notebook, and these make it easy reference. And on this page I've got everything that I need to know to help me communicate with my players. So what is on this page? Well, first of all, there are 3 things that I need to know about the team. And if I go to my squad planner and the comparison, and I go to the mentals, there are 3 things that I need to know. And I can see here in my Norwich squad, aggression is very low. Work rate is better, but it's not brilliant. And finally, concentration is also quite low. And so I will make notes about the team for those 3 things. And those 3 things are very important, I think, when it comes to making touchline shouts. And in terms of my players, and let's pick Lewis Wilden, and what I need to note about every player in my squad is firstly his personality, and we can see that Wilden is fairly professional. And then I need to know what his relationship is like with me, and he has a very close relationship with me, and he holds me in the highest regard as a manager. You may also find other things that are important in here. For example, he believes that the very good support overall for the manager from the dressing room is deserved, and so that becomes quite an important thing in terms of how much he is going to be prepared to listen to you. So I've noted all these things, and then I need to go to the coach report, and I need to find things that he's not so good at. And in particular, I'm looking at the hidden attributes, consistency, the big games, all those things that you need to know about. And I know about Lewis Wilden is that he has a tendency not to get stuck into rough challenges, and that puts his teammates under some pressure. He's fairly selfish, and so that is a big issue. So I need to make a note of that he, when I'm shouting at him, this is one of the things that might be causing problems. And finally, what I need to know is I need to check on 3 particular attributes. I need to know about his aggression, his concentration, and his work rate. And his work rate is okay, I guess, but he has very poor concentration and he has very poor aggression. And these are very important things to make a note of when you are talking to your player later when it comes to touchline shouts. And with all that information that I have about the team and the player, I am now well set up to actually make some shouts. Okay, so having compiled all that information about all the players and about the team, how did it work with Lewis Wilden? Well, in the first case, he was having a very, very poor game in the cup final. Now, I know that he has poor aggression and he has poor concentration. What I noticed was that when I was watching the game, he was involved in the game. It's just that his passing was poor. He couldn't find his man, and also he would allow players from the opposition to take the ball off him without really being involved with them at all. And so I decided that it was a concentration issue with him. And so I clicked on touchline shouts, and I selected individual, and I selected him, and I told him to focus, and 3 minutes later he produced the worldie. And that might be because of his professional attitude, the fact that he holds me in the highest regard. He is likely to listen to me and to what I say to him. He wants to lead by example, and so therefore he listened to the instruction, and then he improved his game and scored the winner. On the second occasion when I communicated with him, it was outside of a game. So the day before the Bayern Munich game, I took him aside, and in the discuss, I went to one player and criticize recent form. Now what I did was then, I don't want to be aggressive with him. I don't need to be aggressive with him. I'm not a disciplinarian, and he's unlikely to listen to me if I dress him down. But what I did instead was I put my arm around him, which seemed to cheer him up a little bit, and then I went to look for something that was a little bit motivating. And what I told him was, I know you haven't scored many recently, but I've got every faith in you to get back to scoring ways. And what happened then is history. He scored the goal that beat Bayern Munich the following day. Knowing his personality and knowing his areas of weakness and his strengths, then I was able to select the right way to speak to him based on the type of manager that I am. But it's not the same for all the players. And if we go back and we now have a look at Lee will be a different kettle of fish altogether. Because if we look at his relationship with me, he's just an acquaintance. Now that means that he is unlikely to listen to what I tell him. And even worse about Lee, he's got no strong feelings about the squad support for me. And he's just pretty much his own person. He really doesn't care what I say. So I have to be very careful when I'm dealing with Lee. I know that he has good aggression. His aggression is quite high compared to the rest of the team. His concentration is very good, and he has excellent work rate. I also know from the coach report that he doesn't have any hidden attribute that might cause a problem to me. And so I need to be very careful when I'm dealing with Lee or the team, because one, he's not going to be very impressed if I shout at him, because he doesn't really have much of an opinion of me. And the second thing is that if I make the decision to make a team shout, and I tell the team, because they have low aggression or low concentration, that I want them to focus more, or I want them to be more passionate about something, he may well get upset about the fact that I'm including him in this instruction. Also, if I fire them up and increase their aggression attribute, he may well get himself into trouble, as he already has a high aggression attribute. And so if I do fire up the whole team, then I'm going to be looking at how he performs and how his little smiley face at the bottom of his rating actually changes. And if it changes to red, I'm going to be very concerned about him in terms of his aggression in the minutes coming after I just spoke to the team. Sometimes it's just better knowing his personality. He might be just best left alone. And so 4 of the shout-outs on the touchline are to do with these attributes. And if you want to get more work out of your team, you might want to shout to the team, demand more. Same goes for if you want to get more work out of an individual, select him as an individual and demand more. If your team is low on aggression and you want them to have more passion about what they're doing, then tell them to fire up. However, if you are picking up far too many yellow cards, it might be a good idea to tell them to calm down. This will also apply to individuals. And then finally, if your team seem to be playing very sloppily and they're giving the ball away, they don't seem very focused on the field, then it is likely it is going to be an issue of concentration. And so you might want to tell the team or an individual to focus, as was the case with Wilden. And the last 3 of the shouts that you have at your disposal during a game are berate, encourage and praise. And these are probably the hardest of all to fathom out when to use them and to whom to use them. They also can be used as a team shout or an individual shout. Now, as I've already stated, I don't use berate anymore because as a motivator, berate doesn't seem to serve any function and the players don't take me very seriously when I get in a rage. However, if I'm 2-0 down against a team who are a league or two below me, then I think that Berate would be a good option, because the players themselves would expect a certain element of rage at that kind of performance. But generally, I would tend to use encourage more than berate. For example, when I was playing live stream the other night, we played against Manchester City at the Etihad. We were red hot favourites to lose, and in fact, coming up to 80-something minutes, we were 2-1 down. But they were playing well beyond what I had expected of them, so I dropped them a little bit of encouragement. And lo and behold, in the last minute, we got an equaliser. And so that encouragement had been enough to get them to lift their level just one notch more, and we got a draw away at City. And in the following game away at Liverpool, another game I was expecting to get hammered in, we were actually 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go. And so again, I dropped them a little bit of encouragement, and lo and behold, Bastian rasped one in from the edge of the box to make it 3-0. And we'd beaten Liverpool by 3-0. By just using a well-placed little bit of encouragement, you can lift your team to a different level. But if you are a disciplinarian or a hard taskmaster, then possibly it might be better for you to berate them when things are going not so well, rather than to offer encouragement. Praise for a team is one of the ones that I stopped using for a long time, because I noticed that every time I praised my team when things were going well, they conceded a goal. And along the course of my testing this, I kind of guessed that it might be to do with complacency. And as soon as you praise them, then they take their foot off the gas, thinking how great they are, and suddenly they're in trouble again. So I don't praise the team. I tend to use praise for individual achievement. And encouragement and praise can both be used effectively on individuals. For example, if you have a youngster in your team, berating him is not going to do you any good anyway, no matter what his personality. What you want to be doing is encouraging him when things go well. And the same can apply to players who have just joined your club, who may have trouble adapting to living in a new country. Berating him is not going to do any good. He's feeling distressed at the moment. Encourage him, help him to settle, and you probably will find you get better results with him. As for praise, praise is something that I would generally use again for youngsters or people settling into a new country. If they do have a good game towards the end of the game, praise them. That's going to help them. That's going to let them know that what they've done is special. And young people and people who are adapting to a new country need to know that they are special and that they are doing well. I just tend to find that if you praise the team as a whole when they go 2-0 up, you'll find that very soon it's only 2-1. And then suddenly you've got a different game on your hands. And so I have been applying this methodology in all my saves for the last few weeks. And what I'm seeing is I am getting some improved performances from players during the game. And I'm also approaching team talks and little chats with players in the same way, looking at things from a different perspective in terms of their personality and my style of management. And these also seem to be having a lot of effect on team and individual performances on the pitch. And that so far is all I have on shouts, and I will continue to research this, and I hope that we'll uncover some more things that will be very useful to all of us. In the meantime, if you have found something that I have not yet found, then please leave it in the comments so that we can share with everybody how best to use these shouts and team talks and all the other little things that go into the game. I think that I'm getting much better results now as a result of just a completely different approach to touchline shouts. And that's it for this video. If you are brand new to the channel, you like FM content, then why not drop us a like, leave a comment, and help us to grow. Because this channel has been set up, as I've said, to help support the British Heart Foundation. And don't forget, come and follow us along at our live stream on Tuesday and Thursday evenings at 8 p.m, or just follow our Norwich save and you'll see some evidence of the results that we're getting as we continue to use these techniques in touchline shouts. And so all that remains to be said now is stay safe, and we will see you all in the next video.